Okay, we're back with part two of the interview with Dick Reese, one of the original designers of the Ted Smith Aerostar. And in this episode, we'll talk a little bit about some of the systems, specifically the hydraulics, the fuel system, some stupid pilot tricks, and the time old question, why did you do it that way? So enjoy.
We started the design, we built the mock-up, and then we started the design. We had a shop out in back of our facilities in Northridge. It was a small facilities. Square footage wise, I've forgotten, but the design room, drafting room was probably 20 by 20, maybe 25 by 25, and maybe 9 drafting boards. So at most, we probably had 7 engineers that designed the whole thing. And the shop, he would buy the milling machines, he would buy the Ted Smith, buy the shears, the brakes, bent the metal, and all this kind of thing, and put those in the shop. It was a small shop, maybe again 20 by 20 or 25 by 25, not that big. And we actually hand built the first 3 aircraft, including the spars. We had the spars extruded to their major shape, but bring those in the house, and on a little tiny milling machine, we would mill those spars, taper on out to the end. So everything was hand done. When I say hand done, with equipment.
So
And our
there's
shop,
no numerical controlled or NC
No,
machinery.
gosh,
This is
no.
all old school.
all, again, no computers at all yet.
Yeah.
And the shop consisted of probably 5 guys, 6 guys at the most.
It's interesting. Over the years that I've been involved flying the Aerostar and teaching in it, I've run into people out there that I think you don't even remember that knew you or had worked in the shop when you were there. And one of those guys was George Braley, who's the one who's designed the 100 unleaded fuel and got it STC'd
Okay.
for all piston engine airplanes,
Oh boy.
which is a big deal. But he
Yeah.
remembers you. But anyway, that's just it.
Well, it was a small group, and it
Yeah.
really shows Skunk Works. Kelly Johnson.
Yeah.
His organization is what TR did at Ted Smith Aircraft. He built a small group of guys that designed the thing as a team and not as a committee. Things designed by a committee are, in my opinion, never any good because it's always making compromises to make everyone in the committee happy. It's got to be a team effort, and it's got to be just a few number of people. Otherwise, you get all these conflicting ideas going, and you never get anything done right. So we, as I said, we hand built the aircraft. Now, TR during the design phase, he was a very domineering person. He had a split personality. In fact, during his memorial, Don Muma, who was a UCLA football player, All-American, became a preacher. Ted Smith did not go to church, but every Saturday morning, he became very close friends of Don Muma. And in effect, Don Muma was teaching about religion, about God. So Don Muma got to know Ted Smith very, very well. And at Ted Smith's memorial, I was a little surprised to hear him say that. And there were a lot of people there. He said, as many of you know, and he was looking out over the audience, he said, as many of you know, Ted Smith was schizophrenic. He had 2 separate personalities. One who was a super nice person. The other was just a terror of a person. And I saw, the other guys in engineering didn't see this side, but I saw this because what he would do, I figured out later on, and I loved him. I loved the man as my father, but fathers treat sons both ways. They chew him out and they love him, right? That's all part of the game.
Yeah, I've been chewed out a few times.
And so he was doing that to me. But anyway, Don Muma said his schizophrenic personality. He said many of you that knew him real well saw the other side of him. but he was doing that only to those people that he respected and felt could take it, because he had to get that out of his system. Now, that was Don Mova, the preacher, saying this, but I think that's exactly what was going on, because he could change overnight. He'd be chewing you out 1 hour, the next hour, hugging you and everything else. So it was a very tough relationship, although a loving relationship. I would go home to Sue after work and just, well, before we moved there, and just hoping she would be there to watch the house being constructed, so I have someone to hug and tell her what was going on, because I went through some real things. But anyway, this is not against TR at all. It's his personality, and I loved him for it. I still love him for it. So anyway, we hand built that first series of aircraft, and I think he, unlike a Bill Lear type, although he was kind of that, where Bill Lear gave no one any credit. He didn't give people credit, except you had to feel that from him rather than hear him say that. He had enough understanding of managing people in him to understand. Well, that just adds character to it.
I have a whole bunch of blooper things I can make out of it. So, well, let's so kind of bringing things back to the original kind of thought that we had in talking about this was that you and TR developed a pretty amazing relationship, both in trust, in that because he let you go. I mean,
well, that's what I was lead up to. He was the kind of manager, I think, fully understood that he couldn't micromanage everything that's going on, and as he gained confidence in the people, he realized that in managing, he couldn't micromanage and get things done. So once he gained confidence in the people that were managing for him, he would just let them go and not critique what they were doing, and why you're doing it this way or whatever. He would just do it unless something drastic was wrong.
Yeah.
So he let those people be creative. And that was one side of TR that really did pay off. But anyway, we developed a extremely close relationship, and that continued right up to the final days.
Well, that obviously was very important with the design of the airplane. And going, into that initial design, I mean, it's not just the shape of the fuselage and the wings and obviously you're picking airfoils and all that kind of stuff and doing all the dynamic design to make sure the airplane is capable of flying, obviously. But then there's systems in the airplane which are different than a lot of airplanes today. One of those is the hydraulics. I mean, this airplane has hydraulic flaps, hydraulic landing gear, hydraulic steering, no electrical required for any of that. So why was that chosen?
Well, I learned that, and maybe this is where flying other airplanes where I got involved, I was learning what not to do. So I designed the gear system, hydraulic part of the gear system, the Aerostar. What holds that gear up is hydraulic pressure. If you lose it, that gear is going to come down. But that's the safe mode. If you lose it, you don't want the gear to have to stay up and come and belly land the airplane. Those experiences are what really pay off in the life of design work.
It's interesting, from flying the airplane and teaching it, the gear, people think it's complicated, but it's a basic, simple hydraulic system that has an accumulator. It's got the newer models have an electric backup pump. You have an engine-driven hydraulic pump on the right engine, and some valves, actuators, and pressure regulators, and that's about it. And there's really not much to really go wrong with any of that. One question that's come up that I get is, why was there only one engine-driven hydraulic pump? Because if you lose the right engine, because you have to let it windmill long enough to get the gear up, which is about 12 or more seconds. And, that's a critical point on takeoff. So why was that choice made?
Well, unfortunately, that was TR's decision. I tried like heck to get him to let us put the hydraulic pump on the other engine, but he wouldn't do it because of cost.
Really?
But that was TR, and I fought and fought and fought on that. So it was things like that that he wouldn't give on. And I think back, there's been a lot of criticism of the fuel system.
We're going to talk about that. That's the next thing I was actually going to
well,
go. It's a perfect
that all
segue.
came about. And again, this is where you rely on experience to help you in your next step of doing stuff. I worked on not only the flying, teaching people how to fly jets so they could transition to the B-47, but I taught ground school for the B-47. And one of the things in ground school I taught was the B-47 fuel system. That is the most complex fuel system I've ever seen in my life. It'd be so, it's a panel, 8 inches wide, 12 inches long, full of switches, full of different positions, full of all this kind of stuff. And when you're under stress, for you to be hitting the right buttons to transfer fuel and get to the right tank, you're going to make a mistake. So I thought, that's no way to design a fuel system. In fact, I gave a paper on that's one of the examples I used in the paper of how not to design a fuel system. So I wanted to keep the fuel system there so completely simple. And the way to do that is to have one central tank, which was in the fuselage. You have to have room to carry the fuel, obviously. And there wasn't room in the fuselage to carry all the fuel because they had no room for the passengers then. You can't all carry it after the fuselage because then the airplane's going to be out of bounds. So you had to carry it in the wings. In fact, I'll go forward a little bit. We were the first ones to make a wet wing. Aerostar was the first one to make a wet wing.
First general aviation airplane?
Yeah.
Even military?
Maybe even military because they were all bladder.
Okay.
Everyone was bladder, but we were the first ones to use wet wings, which of course saves a lot of weight and space and everything else. So how do you get the fuel to the engine in the most efficient with the least amount of pumping required? If you can make it all gravity flow, that's the best way. So you don't have to have any pumps. In fact, I'll jump ahead a little bit. Certification of the 600 with the IO540's engines. We certified without boost pumps. Didn't need boost pumps to climb out on a hot day. This is hot fuel.
Yeah.
That always scared me. Hot fuel, except we had to put a probe in the fuel tank and heat that fuel up to 140 degrees or something. I kind of forgotten. That's electrical stuff going in your fuel tank. It's just, anyway. We were the first to certify you could fly the airplane hot fuel without boost pumps. Now, we had boost pumps. But the reason that happened is because the central fuselage tank, the wings, because it's a mid-wing, fuel in the wings, I use 1 inch or 1 inch and a quarter, forgotten, lines from the wings to the fuselage tank to minimize any flow restrictions, to minimize any loss of pressure of the fuel going from the wings. So that was all gravity flow into the fuselage tank. And once the fuselage tank, again, it was large lines from there. The fuselage gave you the option with valving there. So if you lost an engine, you could, anyway, the basic system was set up so from the fuselage tank, you were pulling to each respective right and left engine its own fuel from its own wing tank.
Right.
Okay, but it was set up so in case you lost an engine, rather than having to lose all that fuel in that wing, you could simply make one switch and that would divert the fuel from the left wing, for instance, to fuselage tank to feed the right engine. So that was a safety feature. But other than that, the simple way to operate the fuel at the Aerostar is to switch to both on, and that's it. And don't mess with it. The trouble is, later on,
Well, this is a good one to go to because later on, this is a question and it comes up every once in a while, and that's double crossfeed.
Yeah.
And the challenge with double crossfeed is you've removed some of the safety features of
Absolutely.
this whole design,
Yep.
and that is that fuselage tank, if you're in crossfeed either left or right, you're still pulling fuel from that wing and the fuselage tank. So if the wing tank unports,
Yep.
because you've gone into a bank and and you're drawing fuel from the downhill side,
Right.
you're still getting fuel from the fuselage tank. Put it in double crossfeed
Right.
now, and that's why this is just a no-no. Then if you're low fuel situation, you lose, you unport that wing, you're going to lose the engine on the other side, and what do? You roll back the other direction and you unport the other engine, and now you got both engines that are acting up on you. And seems to me there were a couple of crashes early on that you ended up being an expert witness
Yep.
on for Piper regarding that.
Well, I'll back up a little bit. Typically, pilots get messing with an airplane without understanding what they're doing. They can fly the airplane, but they really don't understand the airplane that well.
You know, that's why the Aerostar Owners Association has built these training syllabuses.
Yep,
It's for that
absolutely.
very reason. You know, you're flying a very complex piece of equipment. You come out of simpler airplanes and get into this, you do need to understand how things are working, why they work, so you don't end up making the wrong decision
Right.
because you don't understand the system. So anyway, that's kind of a fun part of this. And then other questions I've gotten have to do with the design. You've got, you know, really the fuel is being picked up from let's call it the left wing and right wing sump, which is really two chambers that the fuel is being drawn from. It's not being drawn directly from the fuselage tank. That's gravity feeding into
Yeah.
a chamber with a couple of flapper valves. So what was the purpose? Because some people have asked, well, why do you even need the flapper valves?
It's been so long, I'd have to rethink that. I'd have to look at the system again to remember, because
Yeah.
bear in mind, that's 59 years ago.
Yeah, so basically the answer to that question is that was long enough ago that I don't remember. So I think there's another one like that, and it's had to do with the cowling. And this fun, you know, kind of funny where the cowling was set up to you know, come off the airplane fairly easily, but the problem was that if you had to work on either the number 5 or number 6 cylinder, which were the rear ones,
Yeah.
you got to pull the engine. And then I think I'd asked you that once before. Why'd you do that? And he says, I don't know. It's just the way we did it back then because we built that airplane and had it. Would you went from a blank sheet of paper to certification in what, 18 months? Was it 18 months?
Yeah, or 14 or 16, yeah.
Which is pretty phenomenal. So
No,
things
no,
were
first flight.
first flight. That's pretty phenomenal considering all
Oh,
that
yeah.
was hand built. And so there's a lot of little questions like that come up. And I said, well, that's the way we did it back then. You know, don't remember.
No, we were thinking about that. I've forgotten. I think we felt at the time it was so easy just to disconnect the 4 bolts from the engine mount and just move the engine forward.
Until you ended up with 2 turbochargers and
Yeah,
pressurization and all that kind of
started
stuff.
adding all this stuff on, then that changed the things, of course. Because we started out, as you know, no flaps. We
Right.
were one of the very early aircraft that you certified without cow flaps.
Right.
And that all came about from using the exhaust. If you look at it, the exhaust impinge upon the bottom part of the cowling, and that's designed like the upper part of a venturi tube, half of a venturi tube. So you develop low pressure when the exhaust gas is coming out, and that builds low pressure in the cooling section of the engine and helps pull the air on through, even though you're just taxing out.
Mm-hmm.
So that saved more complications. And later on, I know they added cowl flaps to put
Well, actually,
more horsepower engine.
only it was only Piper who did. Well, Macken, when they did the first Superstar, they built that with the Navajo Chieftain engines, the TIO 540 J2BDs, I think, and they had to use cowl flaps on that one, so that's electric driven. And then when Piper built the Aerostar 700P, they needed to put cowl flaps on it because they put the intercoolers back behind the engine, so which made it really tight and a lot more heat. So there were some things that were different, although the original design that you guys did back in 1965 with that cooling is the same design that was used in all of the Mach-E 750 horsepower conversions after the J2BD engine. It's worked absolutely fine, and it has not needed the cow flaps.
Well, it's a perfect example of keep it simple. Don't just keep copying what's been done before. If there's a way to simplify it that'll make it work, do it. But we've lost that.
Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll have some more out in the next couple of weeks. Should be able to get 2 or maybe 3 more out of the footage that I've got. So if you like our videos, please subscribe and like and press the bell so you'll see more.